الحمد لله وكفى والصلاة والسلام على عباده الذين اصطفى خصوصا على أفضلهم وخاتم النبيين محمد الأمين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين وبعد. Respected Imam, brothers and sisters here at Panorama Masjid in Cape Town, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Al-Masih al-Dajjal and the Malhama is a very challenging topic. The companions were sitting, talking amongst themselves, when the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam passed by and he asked, "What are you talking about?" And they said, "We're talking about alamat as-sa'ah, the signs of the last day." He then said that the last day would not come, and he mentioned 10 signs. And these have traditionally been known as the 10 major signs. But he never said that these are the major signs. Number one, and they're not given in the chronological order in which they will occur. No. Don't make that mistake. Number one, Dajjal. Number two, Gog and Magog. Number three, the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam, the true Messiah. Number four, Dukhan or smoke. Number five, Dabbatul Ard, or a beast, creature of the land. Number six, that the sun would rise from the west. Number 7, 8 and 9, 3, it's called today sinkholes. Sinkholes, the earth collapsing, going down, perhaps with an earthquake, and swallowing what it swallows. One in the east, one in the west, and the third one in Arabia, and this one is connected with Imam al-Mahdi. You want confirmation that this is the true Imam? Another clone created by the Zionists? This is the true Imam? It's the sinkhole that swallows an army. And number 10, that a fire would come out of Yemen and drive people to their place of assembly for judgment. Al-Masih al-Dajjal, because he's someone created by Allah, programmed by Allah, if you allow me to use computer language, to impersonate the true Messiah. Sent to the world because when Allah sent the true Messiah, they rejected him. And they said he's a bastard. And then they boasted of how they crucified him. What they did not know, and what no one knew for 600 years, was that no, they did not kill him, no, they did not crucify him. But Allah made it appear like that. One day, Allah is going to send him back. But those who boasted, they didn't know this. And they know that when Allah gives His word, He keeps His word. And since they rejected the true Messiah, then Allah will send another one who will deceive them into believing that he is the true Messiah, when in fact he would be a false Messiah, and take them into the hellfire. And he is Al-Masih al-Dajjal. His name is not Dajjal. No. Dajjal is the one who deceives. So he's the great pretender, the great deceiver, the great impersonator. In order for him to successfully impersonate the true Messiah, he has to do what the true Messiah will do when he returns, and that is to rule the world. To rule the world from the holy state of Israel, the way the world was ruled by the holy state of Israel at the time of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam. In that sense of the word, he has to rule the world. Not in the sense of ruling every square inch of downtown Chicago. No. If Dajjal is to successfully impersonate the true Messiah and to rule the world from what people would believe to be holy Israel, there are a number of things he'll have to do, which I explained in Jerusalem in the Quran more than 12 years ago. Some of you I know have read the book, but others got the book and put it on a shelf and you've never had time in 12 years to read it. Number one, don't ask me for the hadith, please, because these are logical deductions. Number one, he will have to liberate the Holy Land for the Jews, because it's under Muslim rule for more than 1,000 years. Number two, he'll have to bring the Jews back to the Holy Land to reclaim it as their own. Allah had expelled them and placed a ban on them. For 2,000 years they could never return. They can come back as tourists, but they cannot reclaim the land as their own. They cannot return to do that. Number three, he'll have to restore a state of Israel in the Holy Land and get them to believe that this is holy Israel, when it would not be. It would be an impostor. And number four, he'll have to cause that state of Israel to become the ruling state in the world. Only then, and only then, can Dajjal make the claim that he is the true Messiah and convince the Jews, or have a chance to convince the Jews that he's making a valid claim. When he does that, and he has successfully made the claim to be the Messiah, he successfully impersonated the true Messiah, only then, and not before, only then would Allah send back Nabi Isa alayhi salam, coming down from the sky with his hands resting on the wings of two angels, coming down in a masjid in Damascus. Only then, only after Dajjal has completed his mission, only then would Allah cause Imam al-Mahdi to emerge. Imam al-Mahdi and the return of Nabi Isa alayhi salam are events which are contemporaneous, occurring at the same time. The Imam comes first, and then comes Nabi Isa alayhi salam. Tamim al-Dari was a companion of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, a Palestinian. Took the Shahada, became Muslim, and came to the Prophet ﷺ in Medina and informed him of an experience which he had. Was it an actual journey, or was it a dream, or was it a vision? It could be any one. But he said that he and some 40 of his companions went on board a ship, and the storm came and blew the ship for a whole month until they came to an island. And an island is defined because it has water all around it. Is that the definition of an island in Cape Town? Yes. Good. We can proceed. When they got off the ship, they were confronted by a very hairy beast. Plenty hair. You couldn't tell which side was head and which side was tail. The way that downtown in Lower Manhattan, you can't tell who's the man and who's the woman now. So, who is this? And then the creature spoke and said, I am Jassasa. I am Jassasa. Our knowledge of the Arabic language, our limited knowledge of the Arabic language, led us to the conclusion that I am Jassasa indicates that this is a spy. Wala tajassasu, do not spy. And so this is an island which is about 1 month journey away from the Arab world, and which has excellence in spying and espionage. James Bond kind of stuff. And then Jasasa spoke to them and said, there's someone waiting for you out there, pointing to a monastery which was lying in ruins, indicating, listen carefully now, that on this island, Rahbaniya, or monasticism, the monastic way of life, the monastery, the monk, will eventually crumble and disappear. Hold on to that piece of information carefully, because it's very important. So they rushed to the ruins, and there they saw a man who was chained. His hands were chained to his neck, and his feet were chained. And he spoke to them and questioned them, and then declared that he was Dajjal. He was Dajjal. The description of Dajjal given by Tamim ad-Dari says nothing about being blind in one eye. So if he was blind in one eye, and Tamim Dari was himself blind, couldn't see. Huh? That's the first thing you mentioned. But there's nothing about being blind in one eye. No. And here is someone who is seeing Dajjal. He asked a number of questions, and your homework is to go and check out what are the questions. And then declare that I am Dajjal. And that when I am released, so one day he is going to be released, I will enter every town and every city, including Cape Town. But he didn't mention villages. You have some Malay out here in Cape Town, and in the Malay language the word village is kampung. Kampung. You must know your language. So I'll enter every town and every city, but I will not enter. He will not enter kampung, the village. In other words, the attack of Dajjal, on mankind will be concentrated in the towns and in the cities, but not in the peripheral countryside. No. So there's safety from him in the countryside. When Tamim ad-Dari gave this information to the Prophet ﷺ, the Prophet said that this confirms what I have been saying to the people. In other words, the Prophet ﷺ has confirmed that this is correct. Was it an actual journey? Was it a dream? Or was it a vision? And you know the difference between a dream and a vision? Dreams take place only when you are asleep, except that some people have specialization in something called daydreaming. Dreams occur only when you are asleep, whereas a vision can occur while you are either asleep or awake. Dreams come from shaitan, they come from Allah, they come from your own nafs, but visions come only from Allah. To decide whether or not this was a dream or a vision or an actual journey, we have to go to another hadith, or another part of this long hadith which is in Sahih Muslim. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, that when Dajjal is released, meaning from chains on this island, when he is released, he would live on earth for 40 days. One day which would be like a year, one day which would be like a month, one day which would be like a week. يوم كسنة يوم كشهر يوم كجمعة وسائر أيامه كأيامكم. And all his days, meaning all the rest of his days, like your days. Good. Wait a minute about this term 40. Don't be so hurried to add 20 and 20 and make 40, or 39 and 1 and make 40. Because someone asked the Prophet ﷺ, which was the first masjid to be built? He said, the Kaaba. And then they asked, which was the next one to be built? He said, Masjid Al-Aqsa, Jerusalem. And then they asked, how many years elapsed between the two? He said, 40. 40? When it was actually a few thousand years between this one and that one. So we're dealing with language which has to be interpreted, not to be understood literally. But if you want to accept it literally, that's your choice. But don't try to force us to also choose what you have chosen. That's wrong. That's wrong. Don't do that. You can choose to believe that 40 means 40. And therefore between Masjid Al-Aqsa, the construction of Masjid Al-Aqsa and the Kaaba, only 40 years elapsed. You can choose to believe that. We choose to believe that it was a much longer period of time. And therefore, the term 40 is used symbolically. It has to be interpreted. Similarly, 40 days of Dajjal, it has to be interpreted, subjected to ta'weel. It's mutashabihat. It is only when his day is like our day that he would be in our world, meaning the material universe, in which the sun rises from the east and sets in the west, and there is day and there is night, and there is space and there is time. Only when his day is like our day would he be in our world. At that time, of course, he would not be in chains, would he? Would he? No! No! Because he has to be released first of all, to have a day like a year. So how could be in a chains at the end of the life? How can he be in chains at the end of his life on earth, when he's already traversed a day like a year, a day like a month, and a day like a week? Huh? He cannot be in chains. The only time you could see him as a human being is when he is in our world. So if you see him as a human being, can he be still in chains? No. Shake your head at me. Help me. Help me.
No.
When you see him as a human being, can he still be in chains? No! Someone should shout it that. Shout it out to the scholars of Islam. But Tamim Udari saw him as a human being. And Tamim Udari saw him in chains. And so I conclude. And you do not have to accept my conclusion now. When I give an opinion, you must never accept my opinion. Never! Unless and until you are convinced that I am correct. And so my conclusion is that this could not have been an actual journey. No. This has to be a dream or vision in which you see him as a human being, and yet you're seeing him in chains. However, those who insist that this was an actual journey on a boat have the right to hold that view. And there should be no conflict between us, no fighting. But we are not going to argue with you. No. We are moving on. And we have been moving on, I tell you that. Praise is due to Allah. We have been moving on. We have not argued with anyone. We have not been entering into debates with those who differ with us. All we have said is, be careful. Because any one of us could make a mistake, including Imran. And when you are convinced that I have made a mistake and you come to me, and you provide for me the evidence, and I see it, then I must be man enough to accept I made a mistake. And I must not wait until tomorrow to correct myself, or day after tomorrow. Integrity means right away you must correct yourself, which is what I did. When I realized that I made a mistake in my book on Gog and Magog, the first edition, when I said that Russia was Magog, wrong. I made a mistake. So Dajjal cannot be in the form of a human being, perceived as a human being, and yet also be in chains. No. So we are of the view that this has to be either a dream or a vision. This is our view, and Allah knows best. When he is released, and he has traversed the first and the second and the third stage, and he is in the last stage of his mission now, when he is in our world of space and time. Not only would he be in the form of a human being, but more than that. We know that he's going to be a Jew. Yes. We know that he's going to be a young man. We know that he's going to be powerfully built. We know that he'll have curly hair. The curls that are there in the Torah, but the Orthodox Jews still have at the side of their hair, the curls. And we know where he would be at that time of his life, the end of his life. And we know he has to be in the Holy Land. He has to be in and around Jerusalem. That's where he'll have to be. Because it is from there that he has to rule the world. It is from there he has to rule over a state of Israel in the Holy Land. And from there, not from Khorasan, it is from there that he'll have to make the claim that he is the Messiah. If he makes the claim from Washington, D.C., would any Jew accept it? No. No. He has to make the claim from Jerusalem. They say, Holy Jerusalem. The reason why you're seeing frustration in me is because I've been saying this for 20-something years now. That's why. It's like a machine now for me, repeating and repeating and repeating for 20-something years now. But my learned and my distinguished colleagues, the scholars of Islam, are not convinced that I'm correct. There are many, many, many in the world who believe that yes, Imran is explaining the subject correctly. Many. And the numbers are constantly increasing. But my learned and my distinguished colleagues, the scholars of Islam, have neither said that I am wrong, except now I understand there's a fatwa that I'm a kafir. They've neither said that I'm wrong, nor have they said that I am right. It's just silence out there. And that has provoked this frustration in me in this the evening of my life, because I'm now 73 years of age. When Dajjal is released from his chains, where would he be? Of course, he'd be on an island. The island has to be about 1 month's journey from the Holy Land. Sorry, from the Arab world. The island has to have expertise in spying and espionage. The island has to be an island in which monasticism, the monastery, the Muslim monastic way of life, Rabbaniya, collapses. And it is from that island that he'll commence his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. So there must be a nexus between that island and the Holy Land, between that island and Jerusalem. Can it be Reunion Island? Can it be Singapore? Huh? Which island is it? If you differ with me, you have the right to differ with me. But you must not say that I am wrong until you can say what is right. Is that fair? Isn't that fair? You cannot say that I am wrong unless you can tell me what is right. Otherwise, I give my opinion and you give yours and you give yours. And let the people choose. But don't say that I am wrong unless you could say what is right. About 14, 15 years ago, I was giving a khutbah at the United Nations headquarters in Manhattan, Jummah. And I made the mistake in the khutbah to ask the question, which island was it? The man who is the head of the Arabic Translation Bureau of the United Nations, a very high post, he could not, he's Palestinian, he could not contain himself. You're not supposed to talk when the khutbah did that. And he shouted out, Britain! He couldn't contain himself because he came to the same conclusion that I came, that the island was Britain. So everybody, there was 600 people in that big hall. It's the main reception hall of the United Nations in Manhattan, the Secretary General's reception hall. And the Secretary General of the United Nations gave that hall to the Muslims for Salatul Jummah. And every Jummah, there will be more than 600 people filling the hall. And there are people all around the stairs and so on, standing, no place to sit down. And alhamdulillah, I gave the khutbah for 10 years continuously over there. So this is what happened on that day. I came to the conclusion that the island was Britain. It is about a month's journey by sea. It has expertise in spying and espionage. Ever heard of Sherlock Holmes? Huh? And Mr. Watson? And James Bond and so on? Yes, that's Britain. Specialization in espionage, spying. And it is here in Britain that we see the monastic way of life collapsing, monasticism disappearing. But more than that, we see a nexus between this Britain and the Holy Land. That it was this Britain primarily which embraced the Ottoman Empire, supported the Ottoman Empire, protected the Ottoman Empire. Britain will send her warships to Constantinople to protect the Ottoman Empire when there is danger from Russia. Britain did it several times. So there was an alliance, an unwritten alliance between Britain and the Ottoman Empire. And it was the Ottoman Empire which took control of the Holy Land and ruled over the Holy Land for a few hundred years, as well as Makkah and Medina. The Ottoman Empire which took the Khilafah, the Caliphate, out of the Arab world and took it to Constantinople of all places. And as a consequence laid the foundation for the eventual destruction of the Khilafah. It was Britain who then abandoned the Ottoman Empire when they didn't need it anymore, as we are approaching the First World War. And in order to checkmate, using the terminology of chess, checkmate the Ottoman Empire, that the Ottoman Empire will have no way to turn, no escape when the First World War commences, Britain and France offered to Russia an alliance, tripartite alliance. Well, Russia is a traditional enemy. Why did Britain and France acted in this strange and mysterious way on the eve of the First World War? Answer: to checkmate Russia, Turkey, the Ottoman Empire. They offered some honey to Russia. They call Russia the bear, and bears like honey. The honey that they offered to Russia was that the sick man of Europe is about to die. They call Ottoman Empire the sick man of Europe. The sick man of Europe is about to die, and if you join with us in the effort to bring about his collapse, we promise you Constantinople. You couldn't get better honey than that, because Russia is Orthodox Christian, and Constantinople is the heart of the Orthodox Christian world. So Russia gladly walked into the trap, and the tripartite alliance was made. And so when the First World War started, everything was in place for Dajjal. And a British army, led by General Allenby, is able to defeat the Turkish army, and Jerusalem is conquered. And as he entered Jerusalem, these were his words. He didn't hide them. They don't hide it. He said, today the Crusades are over. Meaning the Crusades were proclaimed by a Pope in Rome in order to facilitate Dajjal's effort to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. Britain did more than liberate the Holy Land for the Jews. Britain ruled over the Holy Land from 1918 until 1948. Reunion Island did not do that. Singapore didn't do that. Britain did it. And during that time, while pretending to keep the Jews out, Britain was allowing the Jews in. In 1917, something else happened, which gives even more validity to my claim that the island is Britain. In October 1917 or November 1917, I can't remember which month, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration that it is the intention of the British government to work for the establishment of a Jewish national home in the Holy Land. So I say the island is Britain. The Prophet said, sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam, that the age of Dajjal will be the age of kathratu riba. The age of riba being universal all over the world, kathratu riba. And I noticed that it is this island of Britain which establishes the Bank of England. And it's the Bank of England which begins to issue what at that time was called promissory notes, but now it's called currency. I thought currency was the thing you put in cake to make the cake. But now they coin a new word. It dropped out of somewhere. It's called currency. Currency. And this currency, you could use it to buy and sell like money. What Britain did, the Bank of England did, was to test the waters with bogus money. But my learned and my distinguished colleagues, the scholars of Islam, are yet to recognize that this monetary system, which commenced with the Bank of England and then culminated with the Bretton Woods Accord in 19, help me somebody, 19, look at that. And you say you're my students. How are you going to teach the subject when Allah calls me away? 1944, the Bretton Woods Accord. And then out of the Bretton Woods Accord came what institution? The Islamic Development Bank. Huh? The International Monetary Fund is correct. You've got to teach this subject when I am no longer here. The International Monetary Fund. Yes. It all came out of the Bank of England. And when the Bank of England was established as the first bank, Britain eventually became the financial capital of the world. But more than that, the scientific and technological revolution, which gave to those who worked on Dajjal's behalf a power that no one ever had before. That scientific and technological revolution commenced in Britain. Yes. That the earth would reveal its treasures to Dajjal, said the Prophet ﷺ. So who gave to the world the technology to go down in Kimberley and go down in Johannesburg to search for something called diamond veins way down in the interior of the earth? Diamond veins. And then to bring those diamonds up. They showed me the wheelbarrows in Kimberley at Big Hole. About 5 wheelbarrows. These are the amount of diamonds we took out of Kimberley. And you could put 3 jumbo jets in that, or is it 5, in that big hole. Where did the technology come from? From Britain. The scientific and technological revolution began from that island. Dajjal will step into the ocean and the water will reach him up to his knee. If you choose to remain believing that this is literal, that's your choice. You're going to have to wait on a Dajjal who is a few miles tall. There's never been a human being, at least I have never seen a human being, a few miles tall. Yeah. For him to step into the ocean and the water to reach him up to his knee. But if you give ta'wil or interpretation, you understand that what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about is that Dajjal will deliver the technology to do that, to go down into the interior of the earth, as they did here in South Africa. These things are coming out of Britain. Britain. Dajjal will fly in a donkey. The donkey will travel as fast as the clouds. The donkey will have his ears stretched out wide. If you want to wait for the flying donkey, that's your choice, not ours. We're moving on. We say that's the modern aircraft. Don't waste your time with us. Don't waste your time with Imran Hosein if you insist that this is literal. Go somewhere else. Don't waste your time with me. Because we say this is to be interpreted. The earth will deliver its treasures to Dajjal. Amongst the treasures that will come out of the earth is that the river Euphrates will uncover a mountain of gold. And if you are convinced that a mountain of the metal is going to come out from underneath the river, well, let's stay with your belief. We're moving on. We say no. No mountain of the metal is coming out from underneath the river. The Prophet ﷺ is not talking about that. We've offered another interpretation. You don't have to accept it. No, you don't have to accept it. But you can't say that I'm wrong unless you can tell me what is right. And so we conclude that the island of Britain, that when Dajjal was released in a day which is like a year, it is from the island of Britain that he commenced his mission to eventually rule the world from Jerusalem. So I have a question to ask. Is Medina an island? Last time I checked, Medina was not an island. No. So how come Dajjal is released? He's released. And no one, and someone as important as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he suspects a Jewish boy in Medina to be Dajjal. The boy's name was Ibn Sayyad. Well documented in the Hadith, Ibn Sayyad. And he takes Umar with him to go, radiallahu ta'ala, to question the boy. Okay? We have the conversation. And when the Prophet ﷺ questioned him, his answers are impertinent. The Jewish boy. But in this exchange between the Prophet ﷺ and this Jewish boy, there is nothing about him being blind in the one eye. No. So the evidence is mounting. Over there, Tamim Udari sees Dajjal and doesn't say anything about blind in one eye. No. And over here, the Prophet is suspecting this boy to be Jewish, to be Dajjal, but he is not blind in one eye. That's the first thing you should look at, if this is literal. The first thing you should look for, is he blind in one eye? Because you can see it. No, he's not. In fact, Ibn Sayyad eventually became a Muslim. And he used to say to people, Dajjal is a Jew, I am a Muslim. Dajjal has one eye, I have two eyes. Why can't you all stop teasing me, calling me Dajjal? This is what Ibn Sayyad used to do. In fact, we have people to this day, up to this day, who are convinced Ibn Sayyad was Dajjal. What can I do? The implication, if the Prophet ﷺ suspects someone in Medina to be Dajjal, the implication is plain as daylight, is that he is no longer in chains. He has been released. You cannot be in chains on the island and yet someone suspect you to be in Medina. No. The implication of the Prophet ﷺ suspecting a Jewish boy in Medina to be Dajjal is that Dajjal is now released from his chains on that island. And this information is being conveyed to us in an indirect way. So we come to the conclusion that Dajjal has been released in the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ. And we've come to the conclusion that when he was released, he was released on the island of Britain. Oh, say my critics, Sheikh Imran, you never studied geography at school? Yes, I did study geography. Well, don't you know that the Prophet ﷺ pointed 20 times to the east? And he said Dajjal will come from the east? What? Britain is in the west. You never studied geography, Sheikh Imran. Yes, I have studied geography. When the Dajjal is released, in a day which is like a year, and then a day which is like a month, and then a day which is like a week, only after that would he be in a day which is like our day. Only then would he be in our world of space and time, in which there is east and there is west. Before that there is no east and west and north and south. There is no sun rising and sun setting, because that belongs to the material universe. Have you lost me? Or are you still with me? It is only when Dajjal is in our material universe that you have east and west and north and south. But not in the worlds before, which are not our worlds of space and time. So therefore, when he is in our world of space and time, at the end of his mission, it is at that time that he will come from the east. But when he is released in a day which is like a year, it will be an island. And that island, you have to convince me which island is it. I have provided for you abundance of evidence that the island is Britain. What I have not said to you so far is that Dajjal wants to establish the state of Israel as the ruling state in the world. So now I am beginning to understand, oh, that's why he uses the scientific and technological revolution to build Britain into the supreme military power in the world. There is no power in the world to match Britain. And in this sense of the word, Britain became the ruling state of the world. And they even coined the term for a ruling state, Pax Britannica. I've never heard of any Pax China. Have you? Pax South Africa? No. But I've heard of Pax Britannica, because Britain did become a ruling state in the world, not only in control of the finances of the world, but London is the financial capital of the world, thanks to the bogus paper money. But Britain is also the military power of the world, because the British Navy rules the seas, And so, in stage one of his mission, he creates a ruling state, Britain. And then came stage two, in which he creates a second ruling state, the United States of America, and now it's called Pax Americana. And the second ruling state has control over money, in that the sterling pound is no longer the international currency, it is now the US dollar. Where did the transfer take place from the sterling pound to the US dollar? Tell me somebody. Come on, Zubair. Where? No. Where and when did the transfer of power take place from the sterling pound to the US dollar as the international currency? Tell me somebody. Huh? Second World War. No. The transfer of power from the sterling pound as the international currency to the US dollar, that's correct. That's correct. At Bretton Woods. At Bretton Woods. Bretton Woods is a town in upstate New York. Upstate New York. I used to drive my car to upstate New York. And at Bretton Woods they organized an international conference on a monetary system. And out of that conference emerged the Bretton Woods Accord. And if you want to know anything about the paper money you have in your pocket, you've got to go to Bretton Woods and study. They don't teach it in the Darul, and yet he's giving fatwa. The transfer of power from the sterling pound to the US dollar took place in 1944 at Bretton Woods. And the day, like a month came, and the United States is now the mother, the godmother, or the what do you call it, the midwife, sorry, who is delivering the baby, the state of Israel, and taking care of the baby when the baby is born. When was the baby born? 1948. The baby was born in 1948. And Britain presided over the birth, and then the United States took over to take care of the baby. The United States now has supreme military power in the world. In the way that Britain had control over the sea, every strategic naval port on the face of the earth, Britain controlled it. Britain controlled it. Every strategically important naval port on the face of the earth, Britain controlled it. Now comes the United States with the Air Force. People didn't travel by air until the 1940s. Oh yes. The British Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain had to fly to meet Hitler in Munich in 1946, and this is the first time the British Prime Minister ever sat in an aeroplane. So air travel came late. What do you think? I sat in an aeroplane for the first time in 1961, and I was scared. Oh my gosh, I was scared. Oh yeah, terrified. 1961 at the age of 19. The United States now controls the sky. And that power of control over the sky is sufficient for the United States to be the ruling state of the world. And so we say that when Dajjal was in a day which is like a year, he gave to the world Pax Britannica. We have never calculated, never, give me the evidence, give me the evidence. We've never calculated how many years did a day like a year last. I have never done that. Others have done it. I've never done it. No. All I say, a day like a year was a long, 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 long period of time. That's all. And now a day like a month, and we see the evidence of decline. The United States is in a state of irreversible decline. The US dollar is now in a state of irreversible decline. The Ponzi scheme is coming to an end. The mountain of gold from underneath the river is now provoking war, meaning the petrodollar monetary system. We don't have the time to give you the explanation today of the mountain of gold. That challenge is coming from BRICS, which is Russia and China and South Africa and India and Brazil. And that challenge to the petrodollar monetary system is constantly gaining momentum. There is open defiance now of the very foundation of the petrodollar monetary system, that oil can be sold for only US dollars. India signs an agreement with Iran to buy oil from Iran and to pay for it in gold. Yes. Oh, open defiance. China does the same thing. Open defiance of the basic rule of the petrodollar monetary system. And so the petrodollar is on its way out. But the petrodollar is the foundation of their power. If they lose control of this, they lose power. They cannot force Greece to come to the line and toe the line unless and until they have the power to bring down the Greek money and force inflation. And as inflation hits the people, they come out in the streets, and then you have a chance for a color revolution. That's what they've been doing all over the place. So if they lose control over money by the collapse of the petrodollar monetary system, they will lose their power. But they're not prepared to lose power. As a consequence, war is now inevitable. A day like a year to commence, Britain had to wage many, many, many wars. A day like a month to commence, the United States had to be waging wars helter-skelter all over the world, including the First and Second World War. In order for a day like a week to commence, obviously you need war. And you need the biggest war of all. And this is how we locate the Malhama. We say that the turning point between Pax Americana and the third ruling state, which we identify as Israel, and therefore Pax Judaica, the turning point between the two would be a great war that the Prophet ﷺ described as the Malhama, and in Christian eschatology it's called Armageddon. That war is mentioned in this hadith about the mountain of gold, where the Prophet said ﷺ that they will fight over the mountain of gold, which means fighting over the petrodollar monetary system. And 99 out of every 100 would be killed, and I say there has never been a war in human history, never, 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 which has killed 99% of combatants. Never. This has to be an absolutely unique phenomenon in military history. We have to say, we have to admit that only weapons of mass destruction can kill 99 out of 100. And we have no knowledge today other than nuclear warfare. There may be other weapons out there beyond nuclear and thermonuclear weapons, but we don't know about them. At this stage of our knowledge, we're looking to see nuclear war with nuclear missiles being shot. The last time nuclear missiles were used to attack a people was in 1945, when one nuclear bomb destroyed a whole city in Hiroshima, and another one destroyed a whole city in Nagasaki. And I suspect that they were testing the waters with these two bombs. I don't believe that these two bombs were unleashed solely for the purpose of waging war on Japan, causing the war to end. No, I believe that in addition to that, they were testing their weapons. What they have today are weapons, and nuclear weapons, far, far, far more powerful than what destroyed Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So what's going to happen if nuclear war breaks out? And the evidence is alarming that the Western alliance with NATO is hell-bent on war with Russia. pig-headed obsession. And the nice good news is that Russia is not backing down. No. You want war? Putin says, don't mess with nuclear Russia. Don't mess with nuclear Russia. And mankind will have to remember those words. Putin said, don't mess with nuclear Russia. And believe you me, he means it. Russia is not backing down. And so the world, you could close your eyes and you could tell that we are heading for the Malhama now. So many can recognize it. But will you ever hear that from the mimbar? Will you ever hear that from the mimbar? No, no. You will not hear that from the mimbar. And you are an intelligent people. You are an intelligent people. And you can see the evidence that the world is heading for nuclear war. And you can see the evidence that this is the Malhama that is coming. And so you have to ask the question again and again and again and again. What is wrong with Islamic scholarship? What is wrong with the learned and distinguished scholars of Islam? That even at the last moment, and yet they're silent, no one talks about what's going to come. How do we prepare ourselves for the Malhama? We know that it is with the Malhama that things will change. Israel wants to rule the world, but Israel is too small to rule the big world. Either Israel has to expand or the world has to contract. Which one? The world has to contract, that's it. So the reason why the Zionists want nuclear war is because when nuclear war takes place, the world will contract. And they have already protected themselves with their underground bunkers and with food and water stored already for as long as it's necessary. They already have that. The rest of us will be like, sunny side up, eggs, that when the nuclear war takes place. But not all will die. It is those who will survive, they are the ones who will face the horrible, horrible, horrible state of affairs. Allah speaks about it in Surah Al-Isra of the Quran. بَعَدَهُ بِاللَّهِ مِنَ الشَّيْطَانِ الرَّجِيمِ. The ayah is there in the Quran. Yes. وَإِن مِّن قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا نَحْنُ مُهْلِكُوهَا قَبْلَ يَوْمِ الْقِيَامَةِ أَوْ مُعَذِّبُوهَا عَذَابًا شَدِيدًا. And not a single town or city will escape. We will destroy them all. And those which are not destroyed, meaning those who survive the nuclear war, we will punish with terrible, terrible, terrible punishment. In what way? Answer, it is not by accident that we now have mega cities in the world. No. The mega cities have not emerged by accident. 20 million people in a city. Mankind has never been that stupid, except in this age. 20 million people in one city. That is very stupid. All of history, and we never so stupid. Because when you are 20 million people in one city, you are a sitting duck. You are a sitting duck. Where are you going to get your food from? Huh? Where are you going to get your water from? The food and the water has to come from outside. Cities are concrete and steel. And when nuclear war takes place, the lines of supply are going to be disrupted. Oh yes. And when the search for food and water turns frantic and violent, that is what the Quran is talking about. Terrible, terrible, terrible punishment. The last place in the world you'd want to be when the frantic search for food and water turns violent. The last place in the world you'd want to be is in a city. But those critics, Imran Hosein is wrong in everything that he says. No, he's a kafir and this and that. So let them stay in the city and let them deal with that problem. But you and I will look at Surah Al-Kahf of the Quran and you see the wisdom of withdrawing from the city and going to small communities in the remote countryside, stocking up on food and on water when you know that war is inevitable. And the village will live like a family. You'll all help each other. Whereas in the city, it'll be dog eat dog. Once they know you have food, they'll come and knock down your doors. Yes, they'll kill because they're starving to death. This is the link between Dajjal's day like a week and the Malhama. The Dajjal's day like a week cannot commence without a big war. After the Malhama, the world will be smaller. And over that smaller world, Israel will be able to establish her rule. I used to think that after the Malhama, nothing will fly. Why? Because the Prophet said that birds will fall down from the sky. That's the hadith. Indicating the radiation will pollute the atmosphere, and so the birds cannot navigate. But then I remembered that Dajjal is still going to be flying a donkey after a day like a week has ended. Yes, Dajjal will be still flying a donkey because you're going to fly a donkey to Medina and you're going to land outside of Medina. And then the earth is going to shake Medina is going to shake 3 times. And every kafir and every munafiq will be thrown out. So Dajjal's donkey will still be flying after the Malhama, indicating that Israel and the Zionists will have the technology. So I came to the conclusion, and I could be wrong, that if they'll have the technology to continue flying, they'll have the technology for their banking system to continue to operate. Electronic banking. How they're going to do it, I don't know. But they'll have the technology. And if the banking system is going to function, continue to function after, then in the same way that Britain had control over money through the sterling pound, and the United States had control over money through this US dollar, Israel will have to control money, and she'll do it through the electronic monetary system. Electronic money. And that is a financial Guantanamo. The same blindness that led the Mufti to give this bogus fatwa that the paper money is halal. My language is harsh, but tell Mufti he's got something worse than that waiting for him in the grave. Tell him for me. If he does not make tawbah, if he doesn't go and study the subject and take that bogus fatwa and throw it in the garbage bin, that the paper money is halal. I've been saying that to him for 20 years now. They won't listen to me. The same blindness that led them to give fatwa that the paper money is halal, that same blindness will lead them to give fatwa that the electronic money is halal. Well, in fact, it will be the rope around your neck. Every single transaction that you make will be recorded. You can't even buy a piece of chicken tikka, or you call it bride. You can't even buy a bride, and they will know it. They know where you bought it. They know how much you paid for it. Yeah. So they know where you are, because everything is recorded electronically. And when they find a profile of a man who is not committing zina, oh, we got a troublemaker here. And not only is he not committing zina, the man is not drinking alcohol. Oh my gosh, we got a troublemaker here. Not only that, they realize from your profile you're giving money in charity, you're giving money to the masjid, you're giving money here. Oh no, we've got to finish him off. So what do? They accuse you of being a terrorist. That's it. Your account is frozen. Don't come to Imran Hosein and complain. That's it. You have no money. You have no one to complain to. That's what the system is designed for. And once they freeze one or two accounts, all the rest of the people will simply line up and worship Dajjal. What do in preparation for that day? Answer, if you give up the sunnah, you must make tawbah, seek forgiveness, and return to the sunnah of dinar and dinar. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, about the period after the Malhama, that Dajjal will withhold the rain. 1 year, 1/3 of the rain will not fall. 2nd year, 2/3. 3rd year, no rain. And no crops will grow. And every hoofed animal will die. And you know it. You know the hadith. Of course you know it. So famine. No food. At that time, if you want food, where will you get it? That's right. Israel. Yes. You've got to go to Israel. You've got to bow down and worship Israel if you want food. And what about us who will not do that? We'd rather starve to death, but we're not going to worship Dajjal. What will we do? Is it possible to make dua and Allah sends food? Is that possible? Huh? Do we have any evidence?
Yes.
Yes, we do. The first one was a little girl in the masjid, in the mihrab. And when Zakaria alayhi salam came inside, he said, Maryam, where did you get this food from? She said, I asked, Allah sent it. And what about the disciples of Nabi Isa alayhi salam? They call it the Last Supper, except that it's not the Last Supper, they want to come after. They said, we don't want just food, grapes and apples, we want cooked food. That's what they asked for. We want cooked food. Will the Lord God send us cooked food? I hope it's not biryani. And Nabi Isa alayhi salam prayed, and Allah sent down a table laden with cooked food. All things are possible with dua. Allah is fa'alul lima yurid. So the Prophet said to his companions when they asked, how will we get food on that day? He said, Subhanallah, will get you food, and Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. And my understanding, and Allah knows best, he said, when you make the dua and Allah sends the food, you will say Subhanallah. And you will say Alhamdulillah. And you will say Allahu Akbar. It is necessary for us to study the subject of Dajjal and to understand that while not all of the material is symbolic, a lot of it is symbolic, some of it is literal, but most certainly not the eyes. Every prophet has warned his people about Dajjal. And the Prophet Nuh alayhi salam warned his people about Dajjal. But I am going to tell you something that no one ever said before me. Dajjal sees with his left eye, he's blind in the right eye, it looks like a bulging grip. But your Lord is not one eye. Between his eyes on his forehead is written the word kafir. And every mu'min will be able to read the word kafir, whether he is katib or khayru katib. We have explained that when Dajjal sees with his left eye, the left eye symbolizes external sight. And when Dajjal is blind in his right eye, the blind right eye symbolizes internal blindness. And all those who follow Dajjal will be internally blind. But you know what Malcolm used to say? He said, be careful of that. He said, they can have you walking to the east when you are convinced that you are walking to the west. Malcolm used to say that. And they can have you walking to the west when you are convinced that you are walking to the east. And that's what the Prophet also said. He said that Dajjal will come with two things, the river and the fire. But his river is a fire, and his fire is the cool waters of a river. Those who fall in his river will have their loads of sin increased, and those who fall in his fire would have their load of sins decreased, indicating that Dajjal will take the road to heaven and make it look like the road to hell. And he'll take the road to hell and make it look like the road to heaven. He's doing that in all the shopping malls. And if you see only with external sight, you will think you're on the road to heaven, but in fact you're on the road to hell. And if you see with only external sight, you're internally blind. The road to heaven will be there, and you think it's the road to hell. The road to hell will be there, you think it's the road to heaven. Internal sight is necessary if we are to penetrate Dajjal's deception. Internal sight is possible only when there is faith in the heart. And remember Surah Al-Kahf, that the man who had the two gardens, he proclaimed his faith in Allah, yes, oh yes. But when Allah took away the gardens, what did he say? He said, Ya laytani lam ushrik bi rabbi ahada. Woe unto me, why did I commit this act of shirk? Where is the shirk? You were saying with your lips that you worship Allah, but with your heart you are worshipping elsewhere. It is when faith enters in the heart sincerely. You sincerely worship Allah. Then you have Iman. But when you have Iman in the age of Dajjal, holding on to Islam will be like holding on to hot coals. So if you're not feeling any hot coals, what you're holding on to is a fig leaf. Yeah. When you have faith in your heart, you're holding on to Islam, then Allah will put nur in your heart. And that nur is not sold in the stock market. And when Allah puts nur in the heart, then said the Prophet, alayhi salatu wasalam, ittaqu firasat al-mu'min فَإِنَّهُ يَنْظُرُ بِنُورِ اللَّهِ. Yeah, the firasa of the mu'min, the wisdom that comes from internal, intuitive, spiritual insight. Because when he sees with the nur of Allah. This is what we need most of all if we are to understand the world in the age of Dajjal, if we are to penetrate his deception, and if we are to recognize the reality that we face and that we have to respond to in a manner which is appropriate, if we are to preserve our faith, we pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may protect us all from the fitna of Dajjal. Allahumma inna na'udhu bika min azab al-qabr wa min azab al-nar ونعوذ بك من فتنة المحيا والممات ومن فتنة المسيح الدجال وصلى الله تعالى على خير خلقه محمد وعلى آله وعلى أصحابه أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين.
Sheikh Imran, you explained before, and in the hadith we know about the Arabs will be wiped out by plague. Where in the Quran is there a foundation to where that's evident that the hadith does explain that the Arabs will be wiped out by plague?
Is there any foundation in the Quran for the hadith that the Arabs are going to be wiped out by plague? It is indirect. It requires ta'wil. The first one will be the zabiha of Ismail alayhi salam, which I have explained in previous lectures. And the second one would be the ayah of Surah Al-Isra, which I have quoted. I cannot think of any other reference at this time.
This is a question from the UK. Was Jassasa human and will he accompany Dajjal?
We do not have, the question is about Jassasa, and the question has come from the island of Tamim Mudari. We do not have any evidence in the hadith on the basis of which to declare that Jassasa was a human being or was not a human being. So we have to stay with what is in the hadith. Yeah.
Prior to 1919, the Jews weren't allowed to enter into Jerusalem. What changed? What came about to make that allowance for them?
The question is, prior to 1919, the Jews were not allowed to enter into Jerusalem. And what was it that caused a change in that policy? First of all, during the entire period that Muslims ruled over Jerusalem, from the time of Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu to 1917, Muslims never prevented Jews from entering Jerusalem. Never. Never prevented Jews from owning property in Jerusalem. Never prevented Jews from worshipping in Jerusalem. No. In fact, Muslims very often had to intervene between different Jewish factions fighting with each other, and different Christians. Sometimes they'd be fighting and bloodshed and so on. Different Christian factions. And the Muslims had to intervene to try to bring peace. Up to 1917, Muslims had control over Jerusalem. In November 1917, the British Army under Allenby conquered Jerusalem. And then I said, while pretending to keep the Jews out of Jerusalem, I mean immigration, they opened the doors for the Jews to enter. Which Jews were these? I'm not talking about the Oriental Jews. I'm not talking about Israel. I'm talking about the European Jews. They are the ones. There are large numbers of them. There are millions of them in Russia. In order to get them out of Russia and into the Holy Land, you needed a Bolshevik revolution. You needed a Soviet Union which would be a clone of the Zionists. And then the Soviet Union, while pretending to be on the side of the Arabs, opened the doors for millions of Russian Jews to migrate to the Holy Land. Next question.
Sheikh, what is your view on Syria at the moment? And how is it linking with
I did make mention of this yesterday, and I'd much prefer we postpone and remain with our topic at this time, before we come to you. If we have questions on the topic, yeah.
Yeah. Tell me, Doc, this magic that we see nowadays, that's these programs on the TV, what is this guy's name? Dynamo. Is this all related to Dajjal? Because this guy is convincing the people, he cuts people in half and puts them together again. Is this all related?
But I don't have a television set at home. I don't know what is dynamo. Yes, Dajjal is going to cut a man in half. Cut him in half. And then bring him back to life.
He's doing it in front of the public.
This is being done now in modern medical surgery with people who are otherwise will be dead, and they have surgery, heart surgery and so on, and they are kept alive. My opinion is that there's nobody going to come and cut a man in half and then bring him back to life. No. This hadith refers to modern medical advancement in the field of surgery.
It's happening, Doc. I'm trying to say
It started right here in South Africa with a man named Christian. Yes, cutting a man in half. You started it right here.
In fact, just on the latest is that they're going to do head transplants soon.
Head transplant
Yes.
on George Bush.
Sheikh, I think my father's referring to a magician performing 360 cutting people in half in front of a live audience.
Oh, that, yeah.
They're putting it back together again.
Yeah, that has been going on for a long time.
But is it related to...
It's not new. I can't say that this is related to Dajjal because it's very old. It's happening all the time, a long time now. My understanding is it's modern medical surgery that the Prophet is talking about cutting a man in half and bringing him back to life.
I'm a bit confused as to the timeline, Sheikh. You say that the Dajjal is supposed to be on earth for 40 days, and that will be 37 days with our days. Yet it's going to be drought for 3 years. So does the drought occur before the 40 days? Or?
I believe you will remember that I said something about the number 40, did I? Do you remember? No. Okay. I'm now repeating it. You may probably came late. Yeah. A man asked the Prophet ﷺ, which is the first masjid you will build? And he said, the Kaaba. And then he asked which was the second. He said, Masjid al-Aqsa. And then he asked how many years elapsed between the two, and the Prophet said 40. No. There are thousands of years in between. This hadith is meant to tell us that the term 40 must not be understood always to mean numerical 40. Okay? So, understanding that after the stage 1 and stage 2 and stage 3 are ended, only 37 days now remain in his life is monstrously false. You're missing the boat altogether. Yeah.
This is, I think it's important to mention this. Mullah Imran, Allah has removed a shield from my heart, and I'm a Muslim now for 2 weeks. I feel like I've been born again. I've been to 2 churches, it was never enough. I asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I want to get closer to Him as I love Him so much. God has taken me to His heart, and please, if you can let me know what I need to study in order to know more about this topic that you...
I would advise, if you want to study Islamic eschatology, that you take a look at my books and listen to the lectures which are on the internet, and I hope that they will be of some benefit to you. But you should not only listen to me, and you should not only read my books, not at all. I have too much respect for your intellect to tell you to do such a thing, not at all. You must listen to my critics as well. You must hear what they say. And when you've looked and you've studied, then you must yourself choose on the basis of your own rational faculty. And may Allah choose you, may Allah guide you to choose correctly, because if you choose wrongly, you're going to pay a price. We all pay a price there.
Is there no more question from the floor?
Sorry, inshallah. You know, in the tri-partnership, when you say the Russians wanted Constantinople, was that...
No, I didn't say the Russians wanted Constantinople.
Ah, okay.
I said those two devils, Britain and France, they put the honey before the bear to trap the bear, the Russian bear. They offered Constantinople.
This question is from the little island called Island. What is the future of ISIS and the relation to Dajjal?
Okay, that question does have some connection with our topic. this is a new insight that I have received. I didn't have it before. I have been saying for 12 years or more now that when Dajjal was in a day which is like a year, he brought Pax Britannica into being with control over money. And then in a day like a month, he brought Pax Americana into being, control over money again, the US dollar. And then in a day like a week, he brought Pax, or he will bring Pax Judaica into being, with again a new system of money, electronic money. This is there in my book, Jerusalem in the Quran, written 12 years or more ago. What I did not realize until recently is that that was not all that Dajjal did. In addition to giving us Pax Britannica, the ruling state in the world, he also brought the Ottoman Empire into being as a dominant force within the world of Islam that will do his dirty work for him. And when the time came for him to dismantle Pax Britannica and to replace it with Pax Americana, he also dismantled the Ottoman Empire and replaced it with Saudi Arabia, who would do his dirty work for him. And when the time comes for Pax Americana to be dismantled and for Pax Judaica to take over, he brings ISIS into being. And therefore, we can close our eyes and anticipate that ISIS has a far more important role to play in the last stage of history than it has so far played. But ISIS will be doing Dajjal's work for Dajjal, doing Dajjal's dirty work for Dajjal, and I pity those sincere Muslims who have eyes and yet cannot see. Pity them.
Is there any other question from the floor?
Sheikh, it is said that when Dajjal appears, he's going to be on the outskirts of Medina. Is there any specific reason why he cannot enter into this Medina Munawwara?
I have not come across any evidence that when Dajjal is released, he's going to be in the outskirts of Medina. On the contrary, it follows for me logically that if he is in chains on the island, that when he will be released, he'll be released on the island. The island. And therefore the island of Britain. Okay? Yes, there is a hadith that Dajjal will not be allowed to enter Makkah and Medina. But two things cannot enter Makkah and Medina. Number one is Dajjal, and number two is? Number two is? Huh? You're afraid to answer me. There are two things which cannot enter Medina and Makkah. Number one is Dajjal, and number two is? Panorama, you got homework to do. The second thing is plague. I think we have a medical doctor here. The modern terminology for plague would be epidemic. Would that be correct? Correct, yeah. Long time it used to be called plague, meaning disease which are extremely contagious, can be spread from one person to another rapidly. Plague. And plague used to kill large numbers of people. Plague will also kill large numbers of animals. Plague. So the Arabs are going to be attacked by plague, biological warfare. But at that time when the Arabs are attacked by plague, plague will not be able to enter Makkah and Medina. You'll be safe if you're in Makkah and Medina. Okay? And Dajjal will not be allowed to enter Makkah and Medina, meaning when Dajjal appears in human form. When you go to Makkah and Medina now, anywhere you turn you see Dajjal. And he ain't seeing Dajjal. It is when his day is like our day, and he appears in the form of a human being. At that time, he cannot enter Makkah and Medina. Yeah.
Maulana, if if the Nabi Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam knew that Dajjal's day, like a year, would be in a different dimension of time, why does Maulana think he suspected the young boy was from Malaysia?
My understanding is, and I can be wrong, that the event of Ibn Sayyad was meant to deliver the news indirectly that Dajjal has been released. In the same way that the news of the release of Gog and Magog came in the form of a vision while he was asleep at the home of his wife Zainab radiallahu ta'ala. And so the release of Gog and Magog took place in the lifetime of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. The release of Dajjal into the world, but not in our dimension of space and time, took place in the lifetime of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam. But if you want to hold on to that hadith in Sahih Muslim, which says that Allah will send, he didn't say Allah will release. The Prophet did not say that Allah will release. He says, فَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ, Allah will send Gog and Magog. If you want to hold on to that and believe that Gog and Magog will only be released after Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns and kills Dajjal, by all means you can hold on to that. But I feel sad for you on that day when you realize what a mistake you made. If you want to believe that Dajjal has not been released so far, and Dajjal is not at work in the world, that's your choice. But I feel so sad for you on that day when you learn what a big mistake you made.
Well, now this question is not directly related to the topic, but I think it's one of the signs, the 10 signs, is the sign of double art. The beast of the earth.
Dabbatul Ard.
Would you care to?
My opinion, and I can be wrong, but I have the right to express my opinion, is that Dabbatul Ard will not speak to mankind, but rather would wound mankind. Tukallimuhum taklimuhum. And that the Dabbatul Ard that the Quran is speaking about is the state of Israel. I am very pleased that Sheikh Safar al-Hawali, the Saudi Sheikh, who also is pioneering Islamic eschatology, may Allah bless him, has come to a conclusion which is quite similar to mine. In his book, Yawmul Qadar, he says that the Dabbatul Ard is the Zionist movement. Yeah. But we have to come back to his question about ISIS. Was it you?
Syria.
On Syria, yeah. Shall we take that now?
Yes.
Good. Syria is a very complex subject, and one should not be rushing to form your conclusions without careful study. It's a master plan at work with this Arab Spring, they call it. But the biggest prize of all was not Egypt, not Tunisia, not Libya, not Yemen. The biggest prize of all was Syria. Why? Number one, Syria has been a frontline state against Israel, with a common border with Israel. Egypt has a buffer zone in between, the Sinai, and Jordan, of course, is a Zionist state. These are the three states around Israel. Lebanon is a important only to the extent that Syria is important because of Syrian influence over Lebanon. The reason why Syria is so complex is because Syria not only has the Shia-Sunni divide, Syria also has a very important Christian community which belongs to Rome, not Western Christianity, more of Orthodox Christianity. And Syria also has the Druze and the Alawi and so on. So very complex. What they did was to install a regime in Syria long years ago. The French did it. To install a French-installed regime in Syria that will butcher Syria on France's behalf. And that was Hafiz al-Assad. Oh yes. The Assad regime over Syria was installed to do the work that the Zionists want them to do for it. But that's the same thing with Zia-ul-Haq in Pakistan. Zia-ul-Haq was in charge of Black September. Black September. I don't know why they call it Black September and blackmail and black this and black that. They don't like the black color. But then Zia-ul-Haq stepped out of line. Oh yes. He stepped out of line when he began to pursue an independent policy for Pakistan, and then the aeroplane had to fall down from the sky. You know, accidents always happen with Zionists. In the case of Syria, we see Syria moving in the direction of an alliance with Russia. So long as Russia was the Soviet Union, no problem. Because the Soviet Union is a Zionist clone. But from the late 1980s, when the Soviet Union collapsed, or they brought it down, and then Russia started re-emerging as a Christian country, now it's trouble. Now we have a problem in the 1990s and since 2001. We have a problem with Syria having close ties with Moscow. Before the Soviet Union collapsed, no problem, none, because the Soviet Union is our friend. But now that Russia is re-emerging as a Christian country, as Rome, now we're not going to allow Syria to have that kind of a relationship with Russia. The Soviet Union had a naval base in Syria, and Russia inherited that. And we cannot allow Russia to have a naval base. We can allow the Soviet Union to have it, but we cannot allow Syria to have it. So they have to plan for an armed insurrection in Syria and make it look like the Syrian people are now, after all these years of bloody oppression, they're now rising up to get rid of this hated regime, blah, 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 blah. Yes, we know that our people have suffered in Syria. You don't have to tell us that. We know what Hafiz al-Assad did. Yes. But we also know that you do not wage a jihad alongside Gog and Magog. Huh? You do not wage a jihad and the weapons are coming from Santa Claus. State-of-the-art weapons and Santa Claus is sending them. And then you give us this bogus nonsense. No, we're taking it from the Syrian army. We heard it so many times before. No, you're getting your state-of-the-art weapons from Santa Claus. That's right. You do not wage a jihad with weapons from NATO. If that's your choice, go your way. When you die, we will not pray over your body. And we will never stand at your grave. If you take weapons from NATO to wage your bogus jihad, if you're taking US dollars from NATO and from Saudi Arabia and from Turkey to wage your bogus jihad, we will not pray over your body, and we'll never stand on your grave, and may Allah take my words all around the world so they can hear it. That's not the way we would. We wage jihad. No. So this is the biggest plum of all, Syria. And the biggest amount of deception involved is in Syria. And to come and tell me that the Shia are killing Sunnis, what an inadequate analysis. What an inadequate analysis. With that statement, you want to complete your analysis of what's happening in Syria? If the armed insurrection in Syria were to succeed, the implication would be that Syria will be another Libya. Is that what you want? Shame on you. You're so shallow in your thinking. Shame on you. You want Syria to become another Libya? Huh? No. Finally, Syria is the biggest problem of all, because it is in Syria that Imam al-Mahdi will be in the masjid, and Dajjal will confront him outside the masjid, and Nabi Isa alayhi salam will return. When he comes down and after the salat is over, Nabi Isa alayhi salam will say, open the gates, indicating that the masjid is barricaded, indicating that the armed insurrection in Syria is going to continue until the day that Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns. That's the implication. You cannot succeed. You cannot succeed either one way or the other. The killing is going to continue until Nabi Isa alayhi salam returns. Yeah.
If you allow us, we're just going to delay the adhan or the salah for a minute or two, because it's a very important event that is going to take place now. And also a question was asked which I thought was very relevant, Malhama. The link between Surah Kaf and Dajjal, and it has been said in the hadith that there is a protection in the recital. Can you please expand?
Please read Surah Al-Kahf in the modern age. The Prophet ﷺ said that if you recite the first 10 ayat of Surah Al-Kahf over Dajjal, you'll be protected from his fitna. In another hadith, the first few ayat of Dajjal, another hadith, the last ayat of Dajjal. Number 2, that if you recite Surah Al-Kahf on the day of Jum'ah, you get nur from the samawat to the ard, and that nur will remain with you until the next Jum'ah. Why is there a link? Because Dajjal is blind in the right eye. The only way you can see with your right eye is if you have nur. The traditional methodology was that you have to take bay'ah with a sheikh. And when I challenged this traditional methodology, they banned me. You're not allowed to lecture in this masjid. It happened a few years ago here in Cape Town. The traditional methodology was, you got to take bay'ah with a sheikh. That's the only road to know. Well, I asked the question, Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui rahimahullah, Sufi Sheikh par excellence, and he's dying, and he's in Medina. He spent 3 months in Medina before he died. Did he appoint a Khalifa? That's what the Sufi Sheikh does. Did he appoint a Khalifa? He did not. He did not. Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari rahimahullah. And I asked those in Cape Town who say that they are disciples of Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari rahimahullah, but who will never come to listen to Imran. No. I asked them. Maulana Fadlur Rahman Ansari is dying. He spends 1 whole month in hospital. He has his consciousness. The doctors say, we can do nothing more for you. He said, take me home. He returns home and he lives for 4 days. And for those 4 days he's walking up and down. He knows he's dying. Did he appoint a Khalifa? No. What message is being sent by these 2 great Sufi sheikhs? The message which is being sent is that the tree is not producing the fruit. Did you hear of any Sufi order declaring that this paper money is haram? Tell me. None. Well then, what difference is there between them and the others who can't see? What Maulana Abdul Alim Siddiqui rahimahullah and Maulana Fadl Rahman Ansari rahimahullah was saying to us by not appointing a Khalifa is that the traditional methodology was not delivering the fruit. And you have to search now for a new methodology for the pursuit of the spiritual quest that will deliver the fruit. If the tree is delivering the fruit, it's working. You will know that you're delivering the fruit if you can penetrate the reality of the world today. Then you're delivering the fruit. That is my answer concerning the relationship between Nur and Surah Al-Kahf. That you recite it on the day of Jummah and you get Nur from Allah. And with that Nur you'll be able to see, provided there's sincere faith in the heart.